Have you ever stopped to think about why some people get everything they want without having to shout, without having to visibly exert themselves, while you work hard, do everything right, follow the rules, and yet remain invisible, easily ignored, constantly surpassed by those who seem to do less? The truth that no one will tell you is this: there is a type of intelligence that 97% of people will never discover. Not because it is secret or inaccessible, but because it requires you to completely abandon the comfortable illusions you've been taught since childhood about how the world works. Machiavelli discovered this centuries ago, that politics guided by reality, not by romantic ideals, is the only path for those who truly want to have control over their own lives. While they sold you the story that being nice, honest, and transparent is the path to success, those who truly master the game understood something completely different. Real power is not shown, it is felt. And right now, as you watch this, people around you are using that same intelligence against you, in casual conversations, in negotiations, in relationships. And you don't even realize it because you're playing chess, thinking the rules are for checkers. Now, I know what you must be thinking. This sounds like manipulation, this sounds wrong. And it's precisely this reaction that keeps you stuck. Because while you're afraid of seeming manipulative, while you operate with your hands tied by moral rules that only you are following, others are advancing their pieces without a guilty conscience. The point isn't to become a bad person. It's to become a person who sees the whole picture, who understands true human nature without romantic filters, who knows that being feared rather than loved isn't cruelty, it's a survival strategy. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn exactly how to develop this dark intelligence that operates in silence, that controls without being seen controlling, that conquers without fanfare. You're going to discover why most people will never have access to this knowledge. Not because it's forbidden, but because it demands something few have the courage to do: face the stark truth about how people really work. And if you stay until the end, you'll leave here with practical techniques that you can apply immediately, today, in your next conversation, and start seeing results that will make you wonder why no one taught you this before. The big lie they told you is that success comes from hard work and good nature. The truth that Machiavelli revealed, and which remains valid 500 years later, is that success comes from understanding the real game being played, from developing virtu, that ability to read moments and people with surgical precision, and from using that knowledge with cold, unemotional intent. Every second you continue operating naively is a second where someone more strategic is overtaking you, using your emotional weaknesses against you, reading you like an open book while you don't even realize you're being studied. But that ends now. Because you're about to learn what the 3% who really rule have discovered: that there's a form of intelligence they don't teach you in school, that doesn't appear in sugary self-help books, that operates in the shadows and transforms you from a piece on the board into a player who moves the pieces, ready to see the world as it really is, without the comforting illusions. Then come with me, because from now on, nothing will be the same. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There is a type of intelligence that most people will never develop, not because it's impossible, but because it demands something few are willing to do: face human reality without romantic filters. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he realized that politics guided by reality, not ideals, was the only sustainable path for those who wished not only to survive, but to prosper in a world full of hidden interests and power games. Dark intelligence isn't about being cruel or evil, far from it. It's about operating with such sharp mental clarity that you can see through the social masks everyone wears daily. While most act driven by emotional impulses and naive expectations about how people should behave, those who develop this form of intelligence see the whole picture. They realize that every smile can hide an interest. Every compliment can be a strategy, and every friendship needs to be evaluated not by what it seems, but by what it truly is. It's like learning to play chess while everyone around is still playing checkers, believing the rules are simple and straightforward. The interesting thing is that this intelligence operates precisely where no one expects it: in silence, in observation, in strategic patience. It's not about shouting the loudest or being the most aggressive in the room. Think of a great chess player like Garry Kasparov. He didn't win just by knowing the moves, but by anticipating 5-10 moves ahead, while his opponent was still focused on the next piece. Dark intelligence works like this. While people are preoccupied with showing strength, those who master this concept are calculating consequences, mapping vulnerabilities, and building invisible advantages. It's calculating, yes, but not in the cold, robotic sense you might imagine. It's calculating like a martial arts master who knows exactly when to attack, when to retreat, and when to simply watch the opponent tire. Machiavelli called this virtù, this ability to read the moment, to understand fortune, and to act at the exact right time. It's not about manipulating people like puppets, but about understanding real human nature without the comforting illusions that society teaches us from childhood. And here's the crucial point. This form of intelligence isn't innate. It develops through experiences, often painful ones, that remove the blinders from your eyes. You know that situation where you fully trusted someone and were betrayed, or when you were too honest and your words were used against you later. These moments are the most valuable lessons, although they are also the most bitter. The difference is that most people react to these situations with anger, resentment, or destructive cynicism. Those who are developing dark intelligence, however, transform these experiences into data, into lessons about how the world really works. It's as if each disappointment is a puzzle piece that, when assembled, reveals a clear pattern. People act out of self-interest, protect their territories, and are only loyal as long as it suits them. Accepting this isn't pessimism, it's realism. And this realism is precisely what separates those who control their own lives from those who live reacting to the actions of others. The question remains: are you ready to let go of illusions and start seeing the game as it really is? The journey to developing this intelligence begins in a place most people consider boring: silent observation. While everyone is desperate to talk, to show off, to prove their worth in conversations, those who are truly paying attention are gathering valuable information that others don't even realize they are giving away. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality required, first and foremost, a deep understanding of who you were dealing with. It's not about spying or being paranoid. It's about developing such refined, active listening that you begin to notice patterns invisible to those stuck on the surface of interactions. When someone speaks, you don't just hear the words, but you identify hidden motivations, disguised fears, and barely concealed ambitions. It's like watching a movie for the second time. You notice details in the background of the scene that you completely ignored on the first viewing. The difference is that, in real life, you are watching people's movie in real time, and the more you practice this observation, the richer your understanding of human behavior becomes. The power of this initial phase lies in recognizing something fundamental that most people ignore. People are frighteningly predictable when they feel safe. Think of someone you know well, perhaps a coworker, a friend, a family member. You can probably predict how that person will react in certain situations, right? Now imagine applying that level of understanding to virtually anyone you encounter. This isn't a supernatural gift, it's a direct consequence of disciplined observation. When people let their guard down, they reveal their internal scripts, those automatic responses they repeat in similar situations. A practical example: notice how someone reacts when contradicted in public versus in private. Some explode, others remain silent and hold a grudge, still others try to turn the tables with humor. These reactions aren't random, they're patterns, and patterns can be predicted and, if necessary, used strategically. Machiavelli understood that it's better to be feared than loved, precisely because he observed that love is volatile and changes according to circumstances, while respect based on competence and strategic predictability is more stable. But here's the trick, Viewmaster. To truly observe, you need to silence your own ego. Most people are so busy thinking about what they're going to say next, how they're going to sound clever or funny, that they completely miss the opportunity to really see what's happening. It's like trying to photograph a landscape while you're jumping. The image comes out blurry, confused, useless. When you learn to be quiet, genuinely present and attentive, it's as if a new channel of information opens up. You begin to notice facial micro-expressions, that almost imperceptible contraction around the eyes when someone is lying, or the sudden relaxation of the shoulders when the person finally feels they can trust you. You perceive who dominates a room not by the loudest voice, but by the way others unconsciously adjust their postures in that person's presence. These subtleties are the alphabet of a deeper language, the language of real human nature that Machiavelli studied so much. And once you learn to read this alphabet, you'll never again be deceived in the same naive way as before. There comes a point in this journey when something within you irreversibly changes. It's a mental transformation, that point of no return where you stop reacting emotionally to everything and start thinking tactically. It's not that you become an emotionless person, that would be robotization, and that's not what we're talking about. What happens is a strategic emotional disconnection, where you still feel, but you don't allow those feelings to dictate your decisions. Machiavelli perfectly understood this dynamic when he spoke about virtù and fortuna. You need internal self-control, virtù, to navigate external circumstances, fortuna, without being carried away by impulses. Imagine a surgeon performing a complex operation. He may feel pressure, fatigue, even nervousness, but the moment he holds the scalpel, these emotions take a back seat because tactical thinking needs to prevail. That's exactly what happens to those who develop dark intelligence. You learn to create this distance between what you feel and what you do. And this distance is the space where strategy resides. The most challenging aspect of this transformation is learning to see people in a completely new way, for their usefulness, their vulnerabilities, and the risks they represent. It sounds cruel when put in those terms, but it's actually just honest. Think of any successful leader you admire, Steve Jobs, for example. He was famous for quickly assessing whether someone was an A player or a B player on his team. It wasn't personal, it was strategic. He understood that the political reality of a company, driven by the need for results and not by romantic ideals about corporate friendship, demanded this kind of clear assessment. When you start doing this in your own interactions, you're not being cold, you're being realistic. That friend who only shows up when they need something, limited usefulness, high risk of emotional burnout. That colleague who silently competes with you. Fragile ego, risk of sabotage when they feel threatened. This mental mapping doesn't mean you'll eliminate all these people from your life, but it means you'll know exactly how to position yourself with each of them, how much to reveal, how much to invest emotionally. And here comes perhaps the most valuable skill of this transformation, the anticipation of lies and betrayals. Once you deeply understand true human nature, that people act primarily out of self-interest, that loyalty has limits, and that even the most virtuous can break under enough pressure, you develop a kind of sixth sense for detecting inconsistencies. It's like learning to identify a counterfeit banknote. At first, you need to check every detail carefully. But with experience, you sense something is wrong just by touching the paper. Similarly, you begin to sense when someone is lying not necessarily by the words they say, but by the energy they emanate, by the small incongruities between the verbal and the non-verbal. A practical example. Someone offers you a partnership or an unmissable opportunity, but is in an inexplicable hurry for you to decide, avoids answering specific questions, or becomes defensive when you ask for details. Red flags. Machiavelli would say that the calculated use of force also includes the force to say no, to back down when something doesn't smell right, even if it seems like a brilliant opportunity on the surface. This ability to anticipate what's coming doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you prepared, and in the game of life, preparation is the difference between those who control the board and those who are merely pawns in someone else's game. The first characteristic of someone who masters dark intelligence is something that seems simple in theory, but is brutally difficult in practice: absolute calm and emotional control. We're not talking about the superficial calm of someone who takes 3 deep breaths and then explodes in the same way. We're talking about transforming emotions into strategy, using that anger you feel as fuel for a calculated plan, instead of wasting it on an emotional outburst that only harms you. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality required leaders who wouldn't be dominated by momentary passions, because decisions made in the heat of the moment rarely survive the test of time. Think of someone like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and emerged without a thirst for revenge, but with a clear strategy of reconciliation that transformed an entire country. He didn't ignore the pain or the anger. He channeled them into something bigger, something strategic. When you develop this level of control, each negative emotion that previously paralyzed you or made you act impulsively becomes just another piece of data in your analysis, another variable that you consider but that doesn't control you. The trick here is understanding that emotions are information, not orders. When someone insults you in public and you feel that wave of anger rising, what's really happening? Your ego is signaling a perceived threat to your social status. Recognizing this is the first step. The second is consciously choosing how to respond. Most people will retaliate in kind, engaging in a pointless exchange of barbs that only burns bridges and creates enemies. Those who master emotional control do things differently. They smile, perhaps make a joke that diffuses the situation, and mentally file away that information about who this person is and how they operate under pressure. Then, if it's strategically relevant, they respond in a much more effective way, perhaps cutting off future opportunities for that person, perhaps simply distancing themselves and letting them bury themselves with their own behavior. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said it's better to be feared than loved. It's not about being aggressive or cruel. It's about people knowing that you're not someone who can be easily provoked or emotionally manipulated. They respect you because they realize you're playing on a different level. Developing this calmness requires daily practice, and here's something concrete you can do. Start creating a space between the stimulus and your response. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, said that between the stimulus and the response, there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our response. Every time something irritates you today, an internet comment, a driver cutting you off in traffic, a colleague taking credit for your work, pause for 3 seconds before reacting. In those 3 seconds, ask yourself, which response gives me more power in this situation? To shout and complain, or to remain calm and act strategically afterward? Over time, these 3 seconds become automatic, and you realize you are operating in a state of constant adaptability, choosing your battles, measuring your words, transforming each interaction into an opportunity to advance your pieces on the board. People around you will start to notice something different about you. They won't be able to define exactly what, but they will sense that you are no longer someone who can be easily shaken. And that feeling, that perception that others have of you, is the beginning of the true silent power that Machiavelli valued so much. The second central characteristic goes beyond the initial observation we've already discussed. It's the ability to literally dissect people as if you were a social surgeon. It's not just about observing and picking up superficial patterns, but developing an almost supernatural ability to read nonverbal cues that reveal what's really happening beneath the social mask everyone wears. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature required a deep understanding of how people actually function, not how they say they function or how they would like to function. Think of Joe Navarro, a former FBI agent specializing in body language. He could identify liars, spies, and criminals just by observing micro-expressions and unconscious behaviors. He didn't have superpowers. He had observation trained to the limit. When you develop this ability, every conversation becomes an open book where the person is telling you much more than you imagine. That quick touch on the neck when a certain subject is mentioned, discomfort. The sudden change in tone of voice, masked insecurity, the averted gaze at a specific moment, something there isn't true. What's fascinating is that this deep observation doesn't just work in big dramatic moments. It's most powerful in the everyday details that everyone ignores. When you're in a meeting and someone proposes an idea, don't just observe who's speaking, but who leans forward with interest and who crosses their arms defensively. Don't just listen to what they verbally agree with, but notice who avoids eye contact with whom. These invisible dynamics tell you more about alliances, rivalries, and power games than any official organizational chart will ever reveal. It's like having a social X-ray. You see the real structure of relationships, not just the facade people build. A practical example. Let's say you want to understand who really calls the shots in a social or professional group. Don't look at who speaks the loudest or has the most important job title on paper. Observe who people look to when they need approval, who can make a joke and everyone laughs genuinely versus who makes a joke and receives polite, forced laughter. These are the clues that reveal true hierarchies, and once you identify them, you know exactly how to navigate that environment effectively. But here's the deepest level of this skill: learning to read not only others, but yourself with the same relentless clarity. How many times have you deceived yourself about your own motivations? Said you did something to help when deep down it was to be recognized? Sworn you didn't care about someone's opinion when in reality it consumed you from the inside? Deep observation begins by turning that microscope inward, dissecting your own patterns, your comfortable lies, your blind spots. It's painful because you discover that you're not as rational as you think, that you often act out of ego disguised as principle, that your certainties are just well-packaged fears. But this brutal self-awareness is liberating. When you know your own weaknesses, they stop controlling you. And when you understand your own patterns of self-sabotage, you can finally interrupt them. Machiavelli spoke of virtue as this ability to mold oneself, to have mastery over one's own reactions and tendencies. A concrete exercise: record yourself in an important conversation, with permission, of course, and then watch it. You'll be shocked by how many times you interrupted without realizing it, how many defensive expressions you made when contradicted, how many nervous tics you have that you never noticed. This level of self-awareness, combined with keen observation of others, puts you on a completely different level of operation in the world. The third characteristic is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all: becoming mysterious, unpredictable, someone people can't fully decipher. While most are desperate to be understood, to explain themselves, to show who they really are on social media and in every conversation, those who master dark intelligence understand that silence as power is infinitely more valuable than constant exposure. Machiavelli knew that the appearance of virtue often mattered more than virtue itself, because people react to what they perceive, not necessarily to what is real. When you become an enigma, when people can't put you in a predictable box, you automatically gain a kind of influence that no amount of self-promotion could buy. Think of someone like investor Warren Buffett in his early years. He operated quietly, accumulating positions in companies while others shouted about his strategies. When he finally revealed his moves, he already had an irreversible advantage. Unpredictability isn't about being random or chaotic. It's about keeping people always one step behind in trying to understand you. The power of this mysterious presence comes from a fundamental psychological principle. People value and fear what they don't fully understand. When you're an open book, when you always react in the same predictable way, you become easy to manipulate, easy to circumvent, easy to ignore. But when you're sometimes warm and sometimes distant, when in certain situations you act one way and in others you surprise with a completely different response, people begin to study you, to respect you, to think twice before testing you. It's not about playing childish games or being artificially mysterious like a movie character. It's simply about not giving everything away in every situation. A practical example: in a negotiation, while the other party is talking non-stop, revealing their pressures, their deadlines, their needs, you remain calm, asking strategic questions, but minimally revealing your own cards. Their silence is unsettling, so they fill the void with more information. You smile, observe, absorb. When you finally speak, each word has weight because it was carefully chosen, not wasted on verbal nervousness. Machiavelli would call this the calculated use of force. In this case, the force of strategic containment. Developing this presence requires something that goes completely against the modern impulse: resisting the need for constant external validation. Nowadays, people post every thought, every feeling, every achievement, seeking likes and comments that confirm their existence. This is the opposite of mysterious presence. When you learn to keep your victories silent, to process your defeats without public drama, to have a rich inner life that doesn't depend on an audience, you automatically become more interesting, more magnetic. People perceive that there is depth there, layers that are not visible on the surface. This doesn't mean being closed off or antisocial. You can still be charismatic. You can still genuinely connect with select people. The difference is that you choose what to show, to whom to show it, and when to show it. It's like an iceberg. Everyone sees the tip above the water, but the true magnitude is hidden below. A concrete exercise to develop this. In the next 3 important interactions you have, practice speaking 30% less than you normally would. Use questions to keep the conversation flowing, but reveal less about yourself. Notice how people begin to lean forward more, literally and figuratively, trying to find out more. Notice how your influence in the conversation paradoxically increases when you speak less. This is the beginning of constant adaptability. You learn to modulate your presence as the situation demands, never fully exposed, always keeping something in reserve. The fourth central characteristic is mastering the art of using words as surgical instruments of persuasion, where every phrase has a purpose and every silence is intentional. It's not about speaking beautifully or using sophisticated vocabulary to impress. It's about communication so precise that you can plant ideas, redirect conversations, and influence decisions without people realizing they are being guided. Machiavelli deeply understood that decisions based on real human nature required communication that spoke directly to people's interests and fears, not their stated ideals. When you develop this skill, every word that comes out of your mouth has been weighed, considered, and serves a specific purpose. Think of great negotiators like Chris Voss, former FBI hostage negotiator. He doesn't waste words. He doesn't speak out of nervousness. Every question he asks is designed to extract information or create a specific psychological effect. When he asks, "How am I going to do this?" instead of simply saying, "I can't," he is using precise communication to get the other person working towards solving his problem. It's brilliant, it's strategic, and it's something anyone can learn if they pay enough attention to the speech itself. The secret lies in understanding that true persuasion isn't about directly convincing someone, but about guiding them to the conclusion you want them to reach on their own. It's like planting a seed instead of pushing a grown tree. The seed sprouts naturally, and the person feels the idea is theirs. A practical example. Imagine you want your team to adopt a new work tool, but you know that if you simply impose it, you'll encounter resistance. Instead of saying, "Let's use this tool because I decided so," you can start by asking strategic questions. What are the biggest bottlenecks in our current process? Let them identify the problems. If we could eliminate these bottlenecks, how much time would we save? Let them quantify the benefit. Has anyone seen a solution that addresses these points exactly? Then you discover together with them the tool you already had in mind. Result, they adopt it enthusiastically because they feel ownership of the decision. This is what Machiavelli understood about the end justifying the means, not in a cruel or unethical way, but in the sense that the result matters, and sometimes the indirect path is more effective than direct confrontation. But here's the most advanced level of precise communication, knowing when to say absolutely nothing. Silence is such a powerful tool that most people dread it and will do anything to fill it, usually revealing far more than they intended. In any tense conversation, a salary negotiation, a personal conflict, a strategic discussion, try making your point and then simply stopping. Don't elaborate, don't justify, don't fill the uncomfortable silence. Just wait. The psychological pressure of silence will make the other person speak, and often they will make concessions, reveal information, or soften their own position just to break that tension. It's almost magical when you see it working. Think of job interviews. The average candidate answers the question and then keeps talking out of nervousness, often sabotaging their own answer. The candidate who masters precise communication answers concisely and then stops, comfortable in silence, forcing the interviewer to lead. This second candidate conveys confidence and control without saying an extra word. Machiavelli would be talking here about having your own loyal armies. In the case of communication, your words are your army, and you need words loyal to your goal, not wasted words that fight against you out of sheer nervousness or a need for constant approval. The fifth and perhaps most liberating characteristic is developing complete emotional independence. Reaching a point where you genuinely don't need external validation to know your own worth. This goes far beyond simply saying, "I don't care what others think." While inside, you're still obsessively checking if someone liked your post or if that person replied to your message. We're talking about a profound disconnection from the need for approval, where your sense of identity and worth comes from within, based on rigorous internal standards that you yourself have established. Machiavelli understood that avoiding being hated was important, but that seeking to be loved by everyone was a fatal trap that left the leader vulnerable to the mood swings of the crowd. When you achieve true emotional independence, the opinions of others become merely interesting data, not decrees about your self-esteem. Think of someone like Elon Musk. Love him or hate him, the man clearly doesn't make decisions based on being popular or liked. He has a vision, brutally high internal standards, and operates from those standards regardless of what Twitter thinks of him on any given day. That's real emotional independence in action. The path to this independence begins with a brutal question you need to answer honestly. Why do you do what you do? When you post something on social media, is it genuinely to share something valuable, or is it to garner likes that make you feel relevant? When you help someone, is it because you strategically decided it makes sense, or because you need to be seen as a good person? When you work late, is it because you are building something meaningful, or because you want your boss's approval? Most of our actions, when examined in this cruel light, reveal themselves to be tainted by a need for validation. And as long as you are held hostage by this need, whoever controls the tap of approval controls you. It's like being a dog waiting for a treat. You may be very talented, very capable, but you are still fundamentally dependent on someone deciding whether you deserve the treat or not. The transformation happens when you decide that the only standards that matter are your own, and that you are the only qualified judge to assess whether you are meeting those standards. Machiavelli called this virtù, this inner strength, this ability to be your own compass, independent of fortune or the opinions of others. Putting this into practice requires specific exercises and a lot of mental discipline. Start with something small but powerful. For the next 2 weeks, don't share any personal achievements publicly. Did you accomplish something incredible at work? Keep it to yourself. Did you have a profound insight? Write it down in your private journal. Did you achieve a personal goal? Celebrate alone or with very close people, but don't turn it into content for public consumption. At first, it will be uncomfortable. You'll feel that itch to share, to want the likes, the validating comments. That itch is exactly the addiction to external validation manifesting itself. When you manage to resist it, something powerful happens. Your achievements become truly yours, not performances for an audience. You start doing things because they genuinely matter to you, not because they will yield good posts. Another exercise. When someone criticizes you, instead of immediately defending yourself or feeling attacked, pause and ask yourself with brutal honesty, is there truth in this criticism? If so, thank them for the information and adjust. If not, discard it unemotionally, as you would discard a spam email. That person's opinion of you is no more important than your own honest assessment. This is the constant adaptability that separates those who control their own destiny from those who live reacting to waves of approval and disapproval from others, always at the mercy of the tide. Now let's move from theory to the territory, where dark intelligence truly manifests itself. In everyday conversations, where most battles are fought and won without anyone realizing a war has taken place. The first practical application is mastering the art of asking strategic questions to extract information without sounding like an interrogator. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality required precise information, and that whoever controls the flow of information controls the game. When you're in a conversation, most people are focused on talking about themselves, promoting themselves, proving their points. You do the opposite. You ask intelligent questions that make the other person open up, reveal motivations, expose vulnerabilities, and share information that will give you an advantage later. A concrete example: you are negotiating with a supplier. Instead of starting by talking about your budget or deadlines, which puts you at a disadvantage, you ask, "How's the market for you lately? High demand?" If they say it's weak, you know you have bargaining power. If they say it's booming, you know you need a different strategy. Each question is a probe that maps the terrain before you make your actual move. The power here lies in controlling without dominating. And this is a crucial distinction that most people completely miss. Dominating a conversation is when you speak louder, interrupt, and impose your opinion by force. This creates resistance, builds enemies, and marks you as aggressive. Controlling a conversation is when you subtly guide the flow through questions, selective validations, and almost imperceptible redirections. And in the end, everyone leaves feeling that it was a productive and equitable conversation, but the results favor you. It's like being a shepherd guiding sheep. They feel they are choosing the path, but you have put up invisible fences that ensure they go where you want. Let's say someone proposes a terrible idea in a meeting that will harm the project. The domineering approach would be, "That won't work, it's a terrible idea." Result: you created an enemy even if you were right. The controlling approach would be, "Interesting perspective. How do you imagine this would work when we encounter obvious problem that the idea ignores?" You got the person to realize on their own that the idea is flawed, nobody lost face, and you're still seen as collaborative. That's what Machiavelli meant by the appearance of virtue. You achieve your goals while maintaining the image of someone reasonable and constructive. And here is the most powerful weapon that few master: using silence as psychological pressure in conversations. When someone makes an absurd proposal, an abusive request, or a clearly false statement, the instinctive reaction of most is to immediately counter-argue, enter the debate, justify why it's wrong. But there's a much more devastating technique. You simply look at the person in silence with a neutral or slightly skeptical expression and wait. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. This charged silence does a job that 1,000 words couldn't. The person begins to feel exposed, doubting their own position, feeling the need to explain themselves or even back down. It works absurdly well in negotiations. When they make you a ridiculous offer, instead of saying, "That's ridiculous," you just look, silently processing, letting the discomfort settle in. Often, they adjust the offer themselves without you needing to say a word. It's the calculated use of psychological force. You're applying pressure without being explicitly aggressive. A practical exercise. The next time someone says something you strongly disagree with, don't respond for 5 full seconds. Just observe the person. Let the silence do its work. You'll be surprised how often they start to correct themselves or soften their stance without you needing to argue anything. When we apply dark intelligence to relationships, the first shift in perspective is radical, seeing each interaction as a negotiation, not in the cynical sense that everything is transactional, but in the honest recognition that every relationship involves exchanges, boundaries, and power balances. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature required accepting that even in the closest relationships, there are interests, needs, and agendas, sometimes aligned, sometimes conflicting. The person who pretends this doesn't exist ends up being manipulated precisely by those who understand and consciously play this game. Think about any relationship you have: friendship, romantic, family, professional. There's a constant dance of concessions and boundaries, of giving and receiving, of power and influence. When you explicitly acknowledge this, you're not being cynical or cold. You're being strategic and honest. A practical example: that friend who always asks for favors but is never available when you need them. Most people keep giving, hoping that one day reciprocity will magically appear. Those who operate with dark intelligence recognize the pattern, adjust their emotional investment accordingly, and establish clear boundaries. Not with drama, not with confrontation. One simply starts to be busy in the same proportions as the other. The second crucial principle is maintaining strategic emotional distance. And this is perhaps the most difficult because it goes against everything we are taught about authentic relationships. But there is a difference between genuine intimacy with select people and emotional dependence that leaves you vulnerable. When you become too emotionally dependent on someone, whether a romantic partner, a close friend, or even a mentor, you surrender power over your emotional state, your decisions, and your self-esteem. Machiavelli warned about the risks of becoming too close to or dependent on anyone, because loyalties change, circumstances change, and what is your safe haven today can become your greatest vulnerability tomorrow. This doesn't mean being distant or closed off from everyone. It means having consciously calibrated levels of closeness. You can have a very small inner circle with those who are genuinely close, but even there, you keep a part of yourself preserved, protected. It's like information security systems in large companies. There are levels of access. Not everyone needs or should have full access to you. Your romantic partner has one level of access, your best friends another, and your work colleagues an even smaller one. This conscious hierarchy protects you from excessive exposure that could be used against you. And here's the most counterintuitive and powerful tool, using absence as a form of power in relationships. Most people operate on the principle of constant presence, responding to messages immediately, always available, demonstrating obvious and frequent interest. This has zero value in the attention market. What truly creates value and respect is your strategic absence. When you're not always available, when there's mystery about what you're doing, when you don't respond to every message in 2 minutes, something interesting happens. People begin to value your time and attention more. It's not about playing childish games of making someone jealous or playing hard to get in an obvious way. It's about genuinely having such a rich and busy life with your own projects that you're naturally not always available. A concrete example: you meet someone interesting, either romantically or professionally. Most people will bombard that person with messages, constant attention, total availability. Result: the person gets used to it, loses interest, and puts you in the always available category, which is synonymous with low priority. The strategic approach: you interact in a genuine and interesting way when you do interact. But there are natural pauses. You have other things going on. You're not begging for attention. The result: the person wonders about you, values the moments of interaction more, sees you as someone who has options and a life of their own. This is what Machiavelli understood about it being better to be feared than loved, not in the sense of causing literal fear, but in the sense that respect based on perceived value is more stable than affection based on constant availability and the need for approval. Now let's consolidate everything into a series of general strategies that you can apply in virtually any context of life. The first is mastering the art of mirroring and redirecting other people's emotions, a technique so subtle that most people don't even realize it's being used on them. It works like this: when someone is emotionally charged, angry, frustrated, anxious, instead of reacting with your own emotion or trying to argue logically, you first mirror their emotional state in a validating way. I perfectly understand why this frustrates you. I would be too in your place. This deactivates their defensiveness because they feel heard. Then you gently redirect. And considering all this, what do you think would be the best way to resolve this? You validated the emotion, but redirected the energy towards a solution instead of letting it burn in unproductive anger. Machiavelli understood that politics guided by reality required this ability to work with people's emotions as they are, not as they should be. A practical example: your boss is angry because a project is delayed. Bad response: "It wasn't my fault. It was Juwone's team that..." Strategic response: "I completely understand the frustration. This delay impacts the entire schedule. Let me show you the plan I've structured to recover the lost time." You've validated, redirected, and positioned yourself as a problem solver, not as the problem itself. The second general strategy is something that will permanently set you apart from the masses. Reveal your true intentions only after winning, never during the game. Most people have an almost compulsive need to explain their plans, to share their strategies, to make everyone understand what they are doing and why. This is strategically suicidal. When you reveal your intentions prematurely, you give people the opportunity to position themselves against you, to sabotage your plans, to copy your ideas, or simply to create obstacles. Machiavelli was a master at this. He observed, planned, and acted before others even understood what was happening. Think of Steve Jobs and how he kept Apple products absolutely secret until launch. While competitors spent energy speculating and trying to guess, Apple worked in silence and only revealed when the product was ready to dominate the market. You can apply this on a personal scale. Want to change jobs? Don't advertise that you're looking. Work quietly, conduct your interviews discreetly, and only announce when you've signed the new contract. Want to launch a business? Don't post about your amazing upcoming project. Build it quietly and launch it when it's working. This discipline of strategic silence is like the calculated use of force. You accumulate power discreetly and only reveal it when you're in an advantageous position. The third, and perhaps most important overall strategy, is to never reveal the full depth of your mind. Always keep layers hidden. Always have something in reserve that people don't know about you. This applies to knowledge, skills, resources, and especially your true analysis of situations and people. When you reveal everything you think, everything you know, all your analytical capacity, you become predictable and therefore controllable. But when people suspect there's more depth than you show, when they realize you're probably thinking things you don't verbalize, when they feel your real capabilities may be greater than you casually demonstrate, then you gain an aura of silent power. It's like an iceberg again. What's visible is impressive, but everyone knows most of it is submerged. A concrete example: in a strategic meeting, you may have identified 3 serious problems in the plan being discussed. Most people would point out all 3 at once, proving how perceptive they are. The strategic approach: you point out the first problem, observe how people react and adjust, and keep the other 2 in your pocket. If the adjustment solves everything, great. If it doesn't solve it, and the problem continues to grow, you have other observations ready for when they are truly needed. This positions you as someone who consistently has valuable insights, not as someone who wastes all their ammunition in the first round. Machiavelli called this acting with cold, unemotional intent. Every move is calculated, every revelation is strategic. Nothing is wasted on impulse or the need for immediate validation. We now arrive at the heart of everything discussed, the principle that unifies all the dark intelligence into a single, crystalline truth. Real power doesn't need to be shown, only felt. While insecure people shout about their achievements, display their strength obviously, and demand constant recognition, those who truly master the game operate on a completely different level. A level where influence flows silently, where control is exercised without fanfare, where things simply happen the way you planned without anyone noticing your hand guiding the outcome. Machiavelli understood this deeply when he said that it is better to be feared than loved, but above all, to avoid being hated. The most sustainable power is not that which is imposed by brute force and generates resentment, but that which people feel and respect almost instinctively, without being able to explain exactly why. It's like gravity. You don't see it, but you constantly feel its effects. When someone enters a room and everyone instinctively adjusts their posture. When a person makes a casual suggestion and it is taken more seriously than emphatic proclamations from others. When someone rarely needs to raise their voice because people naturally pay attention when they speak, that is real power being felt, not shown. True domination is silent precisely because it operates through layers of influence that are invisible to those untrained to see them. It's controlling without being seen as the source of control, and that is infinitely more powerful than obvious domination. When you are obviously the source of power, you are also obviously the target of envy, sabotage, attempts to overthrow you. But when your power is subtle, when you influence through strategic questions instead of direct orders, when you shape contexts instead of forcing behaviors, when you inspire actions instead of demanding them, you become simultaneously powerful and protected. People execute what you want without feeling they are being controlled, sometimes even believing the idea was theirs from the beginning. This is the pinnacle of Machiavellian strategy. Think about how major film producers operate. They rarely appear in the spotlight as directors or actors, but they are the ones who choose which projects receive funding, who is hired, what creative direction is approved. They control the industry without the general public even knowing their names. This is the model, real power that doesn't need a stage, only results. Throughout this journey into dark intelligence, you've realized that it's not about becoming an evil or manipulative person in a destructive sense. It's about shedding romantic illusions, about how the world works, and operating with brutal clarity based on real human nature. It's about constant adaptability, reading each situation accurately, and responding with the appropriate strategy, not programmed emotional reactions. It's about understanding that the end justifies the means, when the end is your own flourishing and protection in a world that has no pity for naivete. When you master deep observation, emotional control, mysterious presence, precise communication and emotional independence, you are building a kind of power that no one can take from you because it's grounded in who you are, not what you possess. Machiavelli wrote his principles over 500 years ago, but they remain relevant because he dealt with constants of human nature. And those constants haven't changed. People still act out of self-interest, still respect might more than naive kindness, and are still predictable in their patterns. The difference now is that you have the tools to navigate this reality not as a victim, but as a strategist. You've learned that having your own loyal armies, in the modern context, means possessing internal resources, mental, emotional, strategic, that depend on no one but yourself. And armed with this intelligence that operates in the shadows while others stumble in the light, you are prepared for something far greater than simply surviving. If you've made it this far, one thing is already clear. You're no longer the same person who pressed play on this video. Something within you has shifted. A layer of naivete has been ripped away, and no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to look at people, conversations, and power the same way you did before. This is the price, and at the same time, the privilege of seeing the real game. From today onward, every smile will be a possible strategy, every compliment a bargaining chip, every relationship a field where invisible forces are at play. This may seem harsh at first, but it's exactly the opposite. It's liberating. Because when you see, you choose. When you understand, you stop being led. When you stop believing in the rules invented to keep you docile, you finally begin to play the game that has always existed, only now, consciously. The point now is not to go around trying to be Machiavellian in a caricatured way, forcing coldness, feigning indifference, or trying to manipulate everyone. That would only be another mask, another poorly interpreted role. True dark intelligence is silent, disciplined, and deeply internal. It's not in the tone of voice, but in the choices you make when no one is watching. It's in the decision to observe before reacting. to think tactically before getting emotional, to speak less and listen 10 times more, to value your absence as much as your presence, to use each disappointment as data, each betrayal as a lesson, each frustration as material to refine your understanding of human nature. Machiavelli didn't write for psychopaths. He wrote for ordinary people who decided to stop being naive. So the question isn't whether you like this content. The question is, what are you going to do with it now? You can close this video, go back to your old life, continue believing that eventually the world will recognize who's good, and keep being overtaken by those who understand the game better than you. Or you can transform this knowledge into daily practice. Start observing in silence. Test the power of your emotional control in the next provocation. Apply strategic silence in the next important conversation. Reduce your exposure. Strengthen your internal patterns. The choice is brutally simple. Continue being a pawn or take the place of a player. If you've decided you no longer accept being led by others, save this video, go back to it as many times as you need and start practicing. Because from today on, you can no longer say you didn't know how the game works. And once the truth has been seen, pretending not to have seen it is also a choice.